All right, good evening, everyone. I know we're starting a little late this evening, but I had no control over that. Excuse me. Let me tell you. So before I go off on some weird rant that no one, in fact, will probably even be like, "Why is he bringing this up?" Let me start the recording, and we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks. I know I said something last week towards the end of the show. Actually, it was the beginning of the show and the end of the show. And because I didn't take my Geritol, my much younger co-host had to remind me that the week that I said that we were going to have Tony Lavasco on was also Martzist Tuesday of the month. So Tony Lavasco will in fact be on with us December 9th. So I was even smart enough to put it to the second week of December and not reschedule for the first Tuesday of December. So I had enough intelligence creep in to go, oh yeah, definitely don't want to do that on the first Tuesday of December, or I'm just going to have the hand the reins over to someone else and say, hey, old guy, time to retire. But anyway, Mr. Martz, welcome back to the show. Great to have you on. And something happened and Tom dropped off. I didn't do it. I swear to God. Let's see. Let's call him back.
Your call has been.
I wonder if his phone died.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll give him a minute, and then I'll try calling him back, or maybe he'll call me back. Who knows? Brandon,
question for you.
Yes.
Oh, well, pretty good. Did you get to read the article that Tom sent us about Mike Moon? It's about his lawsuit against the legislation that gives the Chiefs their big tax incentive.
How did I not listen? Nothing.
Group text was active this week, so
I don't remember. How did I? Oh, yeah. From the news leader.
Yes,
the one from I guess the journalist name is Music.
Guess so. Yeah.
Yep, I did read quite a bit of that
because I got to read. Sorry, go on.
It sounded like the journalist that wrote the story was like, "Oh, this is not a big deal," until Mike Moon laid it out, and he's like, "Oh, the guy makes a lot of sense."
Well, yeah, it's not.
You talk, and I'm going to try to get Tom back on the phone.
What? Right. Well, I was behind I got to read some of it, and then when I went to go back and try to read it again, I was behind a paywall, and it was like wanting me to subscribe, and I wasn't subscribing. But so I am hoping we get Tom back on here pretty soon, because I want to ask, get the ins and outs.
I think we have him back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Okay, I don't either. All of a sudden, the phone call just dropped.
I got a beep, 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 and I tried to call you back and got voicemail. So I don't know what happened.
That's weird, because I got voicemail when I tried to call you back.
That's what happened.
Apparently,
lines got crossed.
Apparently, they don't want us talking.
And we know who they is.
That's right. Know exactly who they is. Brandon, go ahead. You had a question.
Well, I was just gonna, Tom. We were talking about the article that you'd sent over in the group text from the news leader about Mike Moon and him laying out the case. And the first time I got to read a part of it, and then when I went back a second time, I was behind a paywall. And obviously, since Mike Moon is a constitutional champion and friend of the show, I was hoping you could lay out kind of what the article says about the lawsuit.
Oh, he was discussing about the fact that the journalist had asked him what were his. How do I put this? The journalist made it sound like as if he has never read the Constitution. I know that's a shocker, but Mike brought forth the fact that the areas of the state constitution it violated, why he believes it violates those sections. And basically, the whole article was about Mike making the case of why it is that that piece of legislation should have never passed, or should have never. It should have never. It should have never been signed by the governor. It should have never been called for by a special session. And Mike's hope is that we're actually going to find that we're going to get to the point where judges are more inclined to understand that the government operates at the behest of the people, not the people operate at the behest of the government.
Okay. Well, right on. It seems like he got a pretty fair shake from this journalist, which is good considering the subject. Can you lay out kind of the constitutional argument there? Are you familiar with it, or?
This is the one that gives the tax breaks to, basically, it's going to give tax money to the stadium builders for the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's going to be the Hunt family. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes, and I forget who else owns the Kansas City Royals. But within that piece of legislation, not only did you have tax money being appropriated for a private business entity, which is unconstitutional, but you also had certain counties within the state of Missouri that are, I think they were either exempted or somehow they were put on a freeze, but it wasn't all 114 counties. It was only like 76 or 77 counties all total. It was a weird scenario, and I don't have my computer with me because I'm over in Cape Girardeau, so I'm kind of doing this off the cuff based on what I can remember of that piece of legislation, but I can't even remember what the bill number was. I think it was SB 2 from the first extraordinary session, but there was like 3 different things in it, and of course I think they broadly titled it to about taxation or something like that, which allows pretty much, according to the way the General Assembly operates, they feel that anything involving taxes can then fall under the auspices of it's about taxes. Therefore, if it does go to the court, then the court will find it to be constitutional, or the court may determine that certain parts of it are unconstitutional, break those away from the bill, and then keep the rest of the bill intact. And part of that article is Mike laid out the framework for that too. And his hope is that the judge basically finds the whole bill violates the state constitution. Therefore, it can't go forward. I mean, the fact that the government picks winners and losers and has been for decades, even longer than I've been alive, it should absolutely infuriate people. But for some reason, because it's going to the Chiefs, it's going to the Royals, and I think there was an application where it could be made that even the Cardinals could apply for certain scenarios. And of course, you also had the people in St. Louis whose homes were damaged by the tornado. And if they weren't insured, then they get some sort of a tax break or tax write-off because they weren't insured. But if you were insured, too bad, so sad, you're not getting anything. It was just a cluster of a mess. And these are the things that Mike has been bringing up ever since he's been in the General Assembly, clear back to his time frame in the Missouri House.
Right. I remember we talked about this, about all those different things. It's just, Nice to get a little bit of a refresher on it. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I do remember, clearly discussing this bill a few times and how, listen, I understand that. I feel sometimes insurance is a racket. When you're forced to buy car insurance, you're forced to buy medical insurance. It surely seems like a racket. Why you would own a home and not insure it? So if God forbid, a tornado strikes or something devastating happens, that it's not a complete and utter loss, and you're just paying a mortgage on a building that's clearly not fit to live in. I don't know why you would do that. But I also don't like the fact that you're going to steal money. Basically, you're stealing money from one group of people and giving to another group of people who chose not to insure their homes. That really chaps my buttocks, if you know what I'm saying. And so, but this whole, again, we've talked about this so many times, about giving. Anytime you're going to give, Tom's said this, I don't know how many times, all the times she's been on the show, more times than you can shake a stick at, has mentioned that anytime you give a certain group of people a tax break or a tax abatement or a tax rebate or tax credit, whatever word follows that word tax, if you do that and it's not equally across the board for everyone, it's automatically unconstitutional. Forget, funding for public entities. Take all that out. If it's not fair and equal across the board, it is automatically unconstitutional. Now I do want to, just because I was listening to America This Week, the America This Week podcast on the way home, which is Matt Taibbi and Walter, oh my God, what the heck's his name? Kirsch. I think it's Walter Kirsch. And they were talking about, I'm going to call him Moron Mamdani. His name is Zoran Mamdani, but I'm going to call him Moron Mamdani. And then you have the other guy who I cannot remember his name, who is running for mayor in Minneapolis, who is, I guess, Somalian. He looks like a Afro version of the meme where the guy's like, look at me, I am the captain now. He looks identical to that guy with just a lot more hair on his head. He's got the same very narrow, like pointy, like sharp angles and everything. Well, okay, let me just, for the people watching the live stream, let me just, this dude is.
Can you confirm if he's Somalian?
I believe
there's a large Somali refugee population, or I guess just Somali,
apparently he swore some kind of Somali allegiance the other day. I don't know. You know how the news is. Sometimes they just blow stuff out of proportion, right? But I'm going to put up his picture here. And tell me this doesn't look like a hairier version of the guy from the meme. Look at me. I'm the captain now. It's the same. It might be the same guy. But he looks really strikingly similar to the meme that goes around all the time.
It looks like that meme and Ilhan Omar mixed together.
Yeah, like they had a baby.
Right.
And that guy came out. Which I'm almost, why did it do that? I'm pretty sure that those two are quite fond of one another. I think they're really buddy. But Tom, I hear so many people in the libertarian world and see posts from some kind of bigger libertarian names talking about the Mamdani thing and how some people, I on my other podcast last night, I was talking to my co-host and saying, I don't like to see large numbers of people suffering, right? But I feel like this is some type of moment where this is a huge learning or a really good way to learn history, like, hey, this is direction you don't go if you don't like the way things are going, and things are too expensive, you think rent's too high, childcare is too high, and the buses are slow. This is what you don't do. Like, this is a great example of what not to do. But give me your take, because you always have these witty ways of phrasing things. Give me your take on like the Mom Donnies and this schmuck from Minnesota or Minneapolis that's also running for mayor, who's guaranteeing $20 an hour minimum wage. That's one of his campaign promises.
I forget who it was that I was reading. I know it was one of the revolutionaries who decided to pen a letter to one of the other revolutionaries, and I think this was even before the U.S. Constitution was penned. But they were discussing forms of government and why it is that certain governments function versus some governments don't function. And one of the things that was written about was that in a democracy, once the pendulum swings too far one direction, it is virtually impossible to bring it back to the other side, to get it to equal out. It's try to get it back to the center, just will basically never happen. And they were functionally talking about how in a republic, the people have to be allowed to allow themselves total failure when they vote, because it will teach them a lesson. And then the next time they go and vote, the pendulum will swing back the other direction, because they've had exactly too much of whatever it was that they had that ticked them off to begin with. And which I thought was unique insight, but that was back in that time frame when there was only men who were landowners who were a certain age were allowed to vote. So you could actually see the pendulum go one way and then swing back the other way to bring it back to its level keel. But I don't picture that happening now. You've got, like up in Minneapolis, you do have a large percentage of Somalians that move into a certain area. I mean, we've seen this with religious folks as well. Certain peoples of certain religions will start to move into an area. The next thing you know, the whole community is Lutheran, let's say. Well, the next thing you know, the whole school board is Lutheran, and then the whole city council is Lutheran, and then it gets, the county commission's Lutheran, and everybody who works for government is Lutheran. Well, the same thing happens with Mormons. The same thing has happened with Catholics. The same thing are now happening with people of different ethnicities. You got Filipinos. They kind of start to dominate a certain area of the neighborhood, although most of them don't get involved in the political arena. It just so happens that the Somalis and people who are of Middle Eastern descent have started to get involved in the political spectrum. And once they create a dominance in population, well, there's no stopping them. They can pretty much do whatever they want to do, and people get frustrated and they throw their hands up in the air. But let's be honest, 100% of the people don't vote. 75% of the people don't vote. 50% of the people don't vote. So all you have to do is get at least 22% of the vote to go in your favor. If 40% of the people vote, which I doubt, then you can overthrow what it is that you're trying to overthrow and bring that keel back. But I honestly think this nation's too far gone for that. I mean, you literally had Elon Musk on X making the case that if you vote for Curtis Leeway, it's a vote for Mondami. You have to vote Kumo. I think, wait a minute, Kumo, you mean the guy that murdered all those senior citizens by putting people with COVID into their retirement homes? Give me a freaking break. I mean, if I was going to have anybody as a New York mayor, it would probably be the Curtis Leeway guy. He's the only one in reality who has not had a government job that I'm aware of. He's part of the Guardian Angels. He knows what policing is like. He knows what, different. He may not know how to operate a government, but I think he would be better than the other two.
Yeah, I have to say, the thought of Mom Donnie or Cuomo being mayor, that's just vomit inducing. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me, right? We don't live anywhere close to New York. But rest assured that especially if Mom Donnie wins, we will have an endless supply of things to talk about on this show. We could just base our podcast. We might as well call it the New York Non-Liberty Report after this, because all the dumb things that they're going to implement, or at least attempt to implement and say that they're fixing everything, I mean, that's going to give us topic matter for weeks upon weeks. So a little childish, petty part of me, I hope he wins. Because a lot of those people can't figure it out, don't seem to want to figure it out. And so, well, let's just give them what they're asking for then, right? They want government to take care of them. They want free childcare. They're going to get free buses, supposedly. All the rent's going to be frozen on certain types of properties. And it was so funny because Walter on that America This Week podcast goes, if you have a toilet that's overflowing, you better get it fixed now. Because if you freeze all these rent, the rent on all these properties, he's not calling a plumber anymore. Maybe New York has an extra cold winter and there's going to be a lot of people freezing their butts off because the landlord's not going to get anybody over there to fix the boilers right away or anything because, so I at this point, just give them what they want. If they want epic failure, a colossal cluster, just let them have it. Let them have it. Just go for it. Let the rest of us sit back and gaze and wonder at the stupidity of large amounts of people and just go, oh, and when they start crying, we just have to turn your back and go, I can't believe you didn't figure this out before then. But that's just my little childish, petty mind doing things and just saying, I guess it's my age. I think it's my age. Like when you're younger, you're like, I probably shouldn't do that. And then you get older and you're like, hell, let's see what happens. I feel like I'm just at that age. Hell, let's see what happens with this whole New York thing. So that's just kind of my thoughts. Brandon, your thoughts?
Well, I think Mondami's probably going to win. And so, like you said, we're going to get to see a lot of how this plays out. I'm just not so sure. I mean, you've had Bill de Blasio as mayor. I mean, you've had some pretty left-wing mayors. You've had left-wing governors in California and New York and all over. And so, I mean, you can't get any more totalitarian than locking everybody down and writing everybody checks to stay home. I mean, we lived through that reality for months. And so what I'm thinking, and I'm hoping I'm wrong in this, but what I'm thinking is, by the time he implements any policy that he gets to implement with the power that he does have, by the time it really starts to take effect, like people are going to start blaming other things, because I've never seen the Democrats or Republicans take accountability for like failures within society or their own party. And so even if his policies all get implemented and they all fail, they're just going to blame it on the greedy corporations or that left or you know what I'm saying? There's never going to be any real accountability to it. And so I mean, you can hope that this is like a pendulum swing moment, but I kind of feel like I'm with Tom in this, is that there's no pendulum to swing anymore. The people they're going to think this way. They're going to think that this is going to work. And when it doesn't, they'll have an excuse for why it doesn't. And because it's left-leaning liberal New York, they're just going to keep voting themselves into these policies and continue to blame, greedy corporations and whoever they have to blame. But another thing that Tom brought up that I think is important is that Democrats cannot find good candidates to run. They had to run the disgraced former governor. in the like. I mean, he was in trouble because he was going on CNN and getting softball interviews from his brother. He actually got left office not for killing grandma, but for the sexual harassment allegations. And that's who they brought back to try to be like the middle ground, unite us candidate. I think it's good for my team, the Libertarians, to see guys like Donald Trump endorsing Andrew Cuomo. Because at a certain point, when you've got Donald Trump endorsing, who's that Florida guy? Randy Fine. You've got Donald Trump endorsing Randy Fine and Lindsey Graham, and now Andrew Cuomo. Those are the lists of Donald Trump endorsements. People he's going after: Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey. And so I think this is good for libertarians and people who are third-party advocates to see the establishment rallying around itself to defeat. And another thing too, that about the New York City mayor race in particular, is that they're going after Mondami for being Muslim, for being Islam, and not being the socialist. Like, the socialist is the second part of what they talk about. The first part is how he's Muslim and how his Islamic, he's gonna enforce Sharia law. That's like a thing you'll see on X, is like, oh, he's gonna enforce Sharia law. And he went and campaigned at a gay bar. The guy campaigning at the gay bar is not about to enact Sharia law. So again, the argument that he was like Muslim, I think that's going to drive, I don't know how much it moved the polls or what, but it definitely didn't move anybody towards the Cuomo camp. 75% of Jews in New York City, I'm pretty sure, are going to vote for Mondami. So there's that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now, I do want to.
Hey, but at least we have Nick Schroer over here who's going to make it so that you can't do Sharia law in the state of Missouri. He's going to introduce a bill.
Well,
I'm glad. That was at the top of my list of worries. I was so glad. When I woke up this morning, I was like, man, I'm so worried about Sharia law taking over Missouri that I think we need Schroer on it to put something in the legislature. I'm glad to hear that. I feel much more at ease, Tom.
All right. So I want to bring this up, right? Because this is something that kind of got brought up in the group chat. The Lock and Smith Foundation does, they do scoring one way, all based on constitutionality. Now, Armorvine has their own way of scoring things. Now, I believe they only scored like 41 bills, right? So this is just an overview. This was linked by, well, there's one link for Citizens for a Better Camden County, right? They brought this on. Now in their scorecard, right, Nick Schroer is third. Now, out of a possible 415 votes, Moon got 285, Nicola got 185, Schroer got 180. So on their post, I was like, Schroer's in third. There's some kind of joke, basically, was what I said. And they're like, well, this just underscores that most of the Republicans underperformed. Like, well, yeah, that's normal. But Schroer getting third. So here's an interesting part of the scoring. They have bonus points and deduction points, right? Now, again, they can do it however they want. I'm not trying to legislate how they score. I just think it's wonky, and I wanted to point this out. I'm sure I won't score any points with them. This show is probably going to get deduction points after we do this. That's fine. I don't do this for points. So, so it'll say this. Excuse me. This section details specific legislative actions, committee work, and floor statements that resulted in bonus points for actions above and beyond, or deductions for harmful actions or procedural evasion, as referenced in the vote plus bonus deduction scoring model. So House Speaker vote plus 20 points awarded to Sparks, Christensen, Durnell, Elliott, Jordan, Self, Wolfen, Whaley, Titus, and Wright. And so you go down here, February 4th, Senator Trent, 5 points deducted. Stated in the committee hearing he supports a mixed grid for power. Okay. Here he is again. 5 points deducted. attempted to add an unrelated hazing bill to SB 7. There were some other ones down here. Bratton got 5 points deducted, supported the bill, stating, I think this is on SB 4, supported the bill, stating, I think Missouri is doing pretty darn good. Henderson took the school safety bill, SB 1153, from Democrat Mosley and pushed it as a Republican. So now I don't know what was in the school safety bill, right? Don't know, just going by how they're scoring. Carter got 10 points deducted because she was absent. It says hiding from the vote. So let's see. Josh Hurlbert, 5 points deducted, stated on the House floor that SB4 would cause downward pressure on rates, leading to lower costs, which is described as a complete lie.
Doesn't this have like a Harry Potter, like 10 points for Gryffindor,
That's
minus 5 points for Slytherin?
It
like,
does,
vibe
yes.
To it.
That was one of the things that sprung to mind. Coleman, 10 points deducted, flip-flop on HB 567, voted no to move the previous question in debate, but yes to pass the bill. Okay, whatever. I looked at that and I was like, so I didn't, okay, let's look at the House side. Now, Davis and Wolfen are tied for 305. Christensen, 295. Durnell, 260. Elliott, 245. Whaley, 235. Jordan, 230. Titus, 220. And we have Davison at 215. Sparks at 210. Now, Tom, I'm a little unsure, because I know you go to the constitutional scorecards on the Lock and Smith Foundation's page, and you can see the House statistics on the bills filed, Senate statistics, and then you scroll down, you'll see the active scorecard for all the bills. But I'm trying to remember where it is okay, here we go.
Scroll the whole way down to the bottom of that page, and you'll see where you can
okay, now I see
click
it.
on the link for the PDF.
Okay.
But you brought up, now I haven't looked at the Armorvine scorecard, so I'm kind of curious. Did they deduct the points from Mike Moon because he amended an unconstitutional bill, HB 545, with the Constitutional Sound Money Act?
Let me see if it's in the deduction notes, okay?
Or if they even looked at that bill.
I don't see Moon's name on here anywhere. Moon got 5 bonus points for adding amendment to HB 594 to protect Airbnbs from taxation. There was one where everybody got, all senators on February 18th. No one did anything to stop SB 97 on the Senate floor, which reduces transparency of financial details. Don't remember that bill. So that's he got hit with the all senators, and then he got 5 bonus points. But I do not see anything about the gold and silver bill, I'm sorry, the financial institutions bill. It wasn't the gold and silver bill. How dare I say the wrong thing? I want to go back to the Senate summary. Now, again, this is 41 bills or something like that is all they looked at. They didn't look at everything. They're not the Lock and Smith Foundation, which that's the watermark as far as what good scorecards look like. So I'm just going to look here at Moon. Moon is in first place with 285. Nicola's 185. Schroer's at 180. Let's go to Lock and Smith. Again, now they're scoring for more bills, right? Here is Mike Moon in first place. Nicola in second place. Tracy McCreary in third. Patty Lewis, Brian Williams. Where is Nick Schroer? Nick Schroer is in 14th place. Now, mind you, folks, Mike Moon, final score of 61.18%, right? Joe Nicola brings up second at 31.76. Now you come down here to 14th, and Nick Schroer 19.54%. So he jumped from 14th place, the Lockett Smith Foundation, to Armor Vines, third place. Now let's look at the House. Davis and Wolfen are tied for first. Now, in the House, Bryant Wolfen won. He was the highest score. Is 69.27%, followed by Davis at 54.19%. Then Christensen, then Elliott, then Durnell. Now I have to keep bouncing back and forth. So not a whole lot. Whaley, Titus. So those lined up much closer, the top so many, than it did on the Senate side. The Senate side is, besides the top two, is way off base. It's the thing. Let me go back here.
Here's just something to note, though. I will give credit to this Armor Vine scorecards here because they have Mike Moon. I don't know what the percentage is on the 285 to 415. It's got to be somewhere close to 60%. And then they also have a very steep drop off after that. It's like the next one after that's 100-point drop off, which is a similar reflection. I mean, again, it's not the same, but it's similar to the Lock and Smith Foundation. They, aside from a few people in the Senate side, it's really not too far off numbers wise from where the Lock and Smith Foundation is. So I'd say it's, for what they did, it's fairly accurate. Although, with the way they add the bonus points in with the Senate, things got a little crazy. But other than that,
yeah, that's the part that really threw me. I was like, what are we doing here? So they do go through and give you bill notes. And they do score they're neutral on SB1, county salaries, including coroner. SB2 is bad, eliminates transparency in 10 places. SB3, increasing fees. SB4, utility bill. So those three are bad. SB22, IP ballot language, got a good score. Now, is this the one that we think is completely crap? The way they're changing the rules? Or is this something else?
I don't know. Go down to our go to our spreadsheet and scroll down to the Senate side and see what we did with SB 22.
Okay, let's see. We're going to Senate. And all right.
Because if they made it a two-tiered system, you can bet your bottom dollar we rejected it.
So that was SB 22. It was rejected. Because
they have a difference. If a bill is passed in the House and the Senate, then goes to the ballot for a vote, they have a different percentage criteria than if it's an initiative petition by the people.
Okay, yeah.
There's two different standards there for a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, so your your constitutional objection on that was Article 3. Just Article 3 in general. Let's compare. Well, let me see. I can find some SB 20. Okay. School chaplains, good. SB 49. Let's compare that one. Again, I'm not trying to pick on anyone. SB 49 got rejected. Article 1, Section 1. Okay. So I think this is maybe, again, I'm guessing here, folks. I'm not saying this is absolute. Okay. It's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying it seems like their criteria is different than what the Lock and Smith's criteria is, because I think sometimes some of these other groups still vote for the feel-goodisms. This is a Republican thing that we want to get done. And so it's like it's given a little more leeway in certain areas. Other areas like, oh, no, we can't do that. But in other areas, they might be like, yeah, this seems like a good bill. And they go and pass it. And it's not based on anything constitutional. It's more on almost emotion. Because we see this in Missouri all the time, right? These Republicans will push a bill and you're like, clearly this is a horrible idea. But because it's one of those, how did Bill Eigel say it, these big red ideas, right? We got to get these big red ideas done. So it seems like things are based on a little bit, not everything, but a little bit that's based on how conservative it is or what have you. So that's just my input. Tom, you may have a different feeling about that, but it just way it seems to me looking at it from a very wide perspective.
Well, I'm going to come at this from the perspective that I know, which is the Lockett Smith Foundation. I have not looked at Armorbine's scorecard. I did look at the where the people stood at, but for the Lockett Smith Foundation, let's take a bill. Let's say there's 8 different items in a piece of legislation, and every single one of them would absolutely promote liberty. But none of them are in compliance with the single subject rule. We're going to deem it unconstitutional, no matter how good of a bill it is, because it absolutely violates Article 3, Section 21, or it violates Article 3, Section 23. Most of the other organizations within the state will look at that and say, oh, this was 8 great things. So, yeah, we have to pass that. Well, even if it was 8 great things, then do them one at a time, or make it so that when you do it, you take the 3 or the 4 that you could actually put together, put them into one piece of legislation and pass that. Don't try to barrel roll a piece of legislation with 9 or 10 good things and then one bad thing, kind of like with what Mike did with the Constitutional Sound Money Act. That financial institution bill was absolutely atrocious. But the Mike's way of thinking was, well, if I amend it with the Constitutional Money Act, I know it's going to pass. I can vote no on it, which is the constitutional vote. It will pass, and then we'll have constitutional sound money in the state of Missouri. You know, that's not the way I think, nor is it the way I'm ever going to think. Constitutional sound money should have been in a bill that involved money, because constitutional sound money, based on the way it was written, had realistically nothing to do with the basis of the financial institution. And I forget what the original title of that bill was. I don't think it was financial institutions. I think it was something else. But that's the way the system is played up there.
Right.
Now, some of these organizations will say, "Oh, we got constitutional sound money. That's a good conservative piece of legislation." Yeah, if you ignore the other 8 or 9 things that piece of legislation did, then yeah, you could call it conservative. Kind of like if you have 5 or 6 items in a bill that absolutely are conservative, but you get 3 that are absolutely dog crap, and you ignore the 3, but you look at the 7 and go, oh, this is a constitutional piece of legislation. This is really good. We're going to score that way. That was not the way the Lockett Smith Foundation was set up. It was not the way that we wanted to work the system. We wanted to make sure that everybody their scores were attributed to the same identical measure to which their counterparts on the floor or the Senate were. That's why we don't look at committee bills. We don't look at HJRs. We don't look at SJRs. We only look at the pieces of legislation that can become law because the state legislative body, known as the General Assembly, was going to force it upon us. And that's the only thing that we look at. It's the only thing that we've ever looked at. It is either constitutional or it's not constitutional. And in some instances, you can actually make the case, well, it's neither. So I'm not going to hold that against them. That's what the yacht mode on our scorecard is, because you could literally take a piece of legislation and change the word he to make it they, well, that realistically does nothing to the bill. It just expands it so you can't have some lawyer go, well, this is intended for men because it says he. You can't claim my client violated the law because she's a woman. So those are the types of things that we've kind of outmoded, which simply means either way, and we don't hold that vote against the people in the General Assembly for either yes or a no. The only thing we do count is their absences. That way, the people at the end of our scorecard, they can look, as they look at their representatives, they can see how many times that they weren't there for a vote. And we used to hold absence against elected members, especially in the Senate, because they got two ways that you can miss a vote. You can either do it with absent without leave or absent with leave. But in either regard, we don't know exactly why it is that they missed a vote. We could always say, oh, they did that because they didn't want to put forth their vote on that piece of legislation, therefore they missed it. And I've watched that happen on the House floor. When they call for a vote and about 15 members of the General Assembly on the House side walked to the back of the room, and then when voting was closed, they walked back up to their desk. Well, I'm not there to see who the 15 were that they didn't want their constituents to know how they voted, so they just voted absent. So we decided we weren't going to try to think how it is that they were thinking, and that we weren't going to hold that against them. But in reality, it is held against them, because if they're absent and there's like 193 total available votes, like on the House side, well, the fact that you're absent means that you're now at 192. So you've got one vote that you miss. So it does kind of counteract your point score, because all the ones that you missed, if you voted correctly on, let's say you missed 15 votes, well, then you could have had 15 more points.
Right. I did go back and look here. Let me pull this back up so everyone else can see it here, just to kind of reiterate here. So now this is very vague, right? Very generalized way. It just says how we evaluate legislation. We have three ways of evaluating legislation: good, neutral, or bad. If a piece of legislation is good, then not only is it beneficial, but there is no harm to the people. If it's neutral, then it is either a bill with both good and bad components, or B, a bill that doesn't move the needle in one direction or the other. If a piece of legislation is bad, the bad completely outweighs the good. So again, like what you were saying, Tom, it lines right up. You know, if there's a bill with 8 things, all promote liberty, but you know, there's different subjects to the bill, you guys are going to say that's a bad bill. And I guess, again, this just feels like I'm picking on people, but I'm not. I'm just trying to. People sometimes, I know what they think about when we talk about this. Like, you guys are being too hard on them or whatever. It's just, we're just trying to get them to uphold their oaths. That's all. But yes, okay. So you have a bill. There's 8 different subjects in it, or there's 4 and 4, right? 4 subjects, or 4 things in that bill that line up with the subject, 4 that don't. The thing is, this is the way I'm looking at it. Is it beneficial for you to call that a good bill when it's unconstitutional? That we're doing things the way they shouldn't be done. Because if you can say this is good legislation because it promotes liberty and 8 different things, but that also leads to where we're at now, where people will just amend the crap out of a bill to try to get their stuff through at the end of the year so they can go back home and tell their constituents, I got something passed. Does it lead to the good of the people? I guess is what I'm saying. If you're okay with putting 8 topics in a bill that are quote unquote beneficial, is it beneficial in the long run to keep promoting this type of activity. I for one don't necessarily agree with that. So, Brandon, if you got any thoughts on this, again, I know people think sometimes we're probably just being big jerks about this, but I mean, hell, you got to do something, right? You got to point it out at some form or fashion, or crap gets out of hand.
No, I mean, I think you guys both pretty much said it. I mean, yeah, Tom's the Lock and Smith Foundation's just got a tighter standard on what is constitutional and what is an acceptable bill and what's not. And like I bring this up, but I just think it's every time. I just always think it's funny how they take an oath to the Constitution, and then even you see the average, like you exclude the tops, like you get rid of Mike Moon and Bryant Wolf, and House side's a little better, but on the Senate side, you're averaging like 20% constitutionality after that. Even with Mike Moon and Bryant Wolf in there, it doesn't help much. Like on the House side, once you get past like the top 10, it's down to like 25%. And so, always interesting whenever you see those scorecards, even from Armorvine or from the Lock and Smith Foundation, and they're just so incredibly off base from what their constituents really want or what's constitutional.
Yeah, especially like my representative is 107th out of like 163 at like 20.97%. And I've had people tell me, he's like, well, he actually, if you look at his voting record, he votes pretty good. I'm gonna say that's not accurate. After seeing the last few years of scorecards, I'm gonna say that's a really inaccurate way of looking at things. And that
really?
makes me,
I was just gonna say, if you could look up Dave Hinman, he's my representative. I want to know where he falls on this.
Okay. How did I?
Well, don't forget, they're putting Sassman on the Trumpian scale. He's voting for everything predominantly Republican.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what you said, Hinman?
Hinman,
H-I-N-M-A-N,
yeah.
All right. Now, if I skip it once, because there's a lot of names here.
Well, on one of those PDFs, it's actually in alphabetical order.
Oh, I'm just looking at, this is like a Word document that I'm looking at right now. So that's probably what's throwing me off. But I will just scroll here. I'll find it here in a minute. People bear with me. I am absolutely just drained today. Oh,
see, the listeners can absolutely tell that we don't talk beforehand about what it is that we're going to talk about, or we'd have these answers right at the tip of our fingers.
Right. Hinman is 87. So he's at 22.22%. So you're doing better than my guy, because my guy is at 20.67%.
Well, my guy's probably considered a constitutional warrior at this point.
It very well could be. Like, okay, so Lakeisha Bosley. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's a Democrat. Okay? Just, if I'm wrong, she's in 40th. She is 67 places ahead. A Democrat is 67 places ahead of my Republican representative. I mean, that's 40 or what that's 47 above yours, right? Yeah, 47 ahead of you.
Now, I'm going to put a slight asterisk on that, because if you're just voting no because you're a Democrat and you're voting no, and like you just happen to vote no on a bunch of bills because of that, I'm not, you get no credit from me for that. Like,
but still, I mean, I think that we should take this information when they're running for re-election again and go, hey, do you know a Democrat scored more constitutionally than this guy did? Because it makes that without them understanding the context, right? Like, they just voted because it was a Republican bill and they didn't like it. They still voted constitutionally here. So I think it would be an interesting twist to bring that up, to people like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Sassman, and pull up the scorecard and go, look at all the Democrats that voted more constitutionally than Sassman, just to lock their brains up. It would be an interesting experiment because that would be like the same thing if it's a big Trump supporter and you go out and you talk smack on Trump and they just automatically like seize up. They don't know what to do because they're first, oh, you must be a Democrat. You're wrong. I have more than 2 brain cells to rub together. Doesn't sound like it tonight, but I actually do. And so, yeah, I think it would just be fun to watch the wheels spin,
Again,
just a little bit.
I'm not going to talk for all Democrats, but when I see the Democrats scoring, getting up there in this constitutional, what I imagine, it's like this. It's like someone, you're a batter and the pitcher throws the ball and you swung and missed so hard that you did a full 360. And then on the way back around, you hit a single. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? I'm not signing that guy to a contract.
Okay, can I put an asterisk to Brandon's asterisk?
Let's hear it, Tom.
we have studied this and studied this and studied this because the comment was always, well, the reason the Democrats score so high is they're just voting against Republican legislation. Except for Republicans and Democrats will vote identically 75% of the time, year in and year out. So if someone is trying to make the case that Democrats are simply voting no because of Republican legislation, then I'm going to proclaim that just shows their ignorance. Now, granted, I don't know if they're voting constitutionally to vote constitutionally. I can't tell you if the Republicans are voting constitutionally to vote in line with the Constitution, except for when I see them stand up, like a Mike Moon, like a Bryant Wolfen, like I have Darren Chappell and others on several occasions stood up and said, we can't do this. It is an absolute abomination. It violates the Constitution. It violates it here. It violates it here. It violates it here. And then they push that no button. That is the only way that I know that they absolutely voted no, or I should say voted the correct way, because the Constitution says they couldn't do it. But the argument that most Republicans use, and the fact that Brandon's a libertarian, he came up with this one, is just mind-boggling to me. But 75% of the time, the Republicans and Democrats walk in lockstep with one another. So there is something about that other 25%. And I'm not saying they're doing it because they're voting. They know that this section of the Constitution is being violated. There may be a section in that piece of legislation that they don't like, and that's the whole reason they're voting against it. It's the same reason that all the Trumpers are attacking Thomas Massie. They attack Rand Paul. Look at all the Republicans who attack Ron Paul. Anytime you get somebody who has a principle stance that if this is in a piece of legislation, I will never, ever, 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 ever vote for it because it's against my principles. You've got both sides of the political aisle that will condemn that individual, like the people who are now attacking Thomas Massie, because he doesn't vote for anything Republican. When we need him to vote Republican, he's not there. 85% of the time, Thomas Massie votes in lockstep with the Republicans. So that means there's 15% of the time where he's not walking in lockstep because there's something in that piece of legislation that just got his ire up, and he says, no, there is absolutely no way I'm supporting that because, and generally with Thomas Massie, you can say it's because it violates the Constitution. But I'm not going to make the case at the state level that either the Republicans or the Democrats are voting against something because it's unconstitutional, unless I know for a positive fact they are doing it. So I got Mike Moon, I've got Bryant Wolfen, on occasion I've got Darren Chappell, On occasion, I saw Brad Hudson one time do it. Nick Marshall used to do it. I've seen Jeff Pogue do it. I've seen Thomas Hurst do it. Unless you're going to get up on the floor and make the case, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, and the Constitution says that we can't, to me, in reality, that is the only constitutional vote. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, if your vote is in alignment with the Constitution, that is the correct vote. We don't want to delve into the thinking or the thought process of people when they're on the floor voting, because that leads to extremities to the point where you start deducting because you think somebody missed a vote because they didn't want to let their constituents know how it is that they really felt about the piece of legislation. There's a whole bunch of philosophical mindsets that can be implanted into people's heads that in reality are not there.
Okay, just off topic because I saw the name. This is of literally no importance. It's just my dumb brain kicking into gear here. But 23rd on the House side is Yolanda Henderson. Her last name is spelled Fountain, like a water fountain. But I'm wondering if it's Fontaine or if it's Fountain, because that just begged the question, who got so high that they're like, we need a middle name, a catchy middle name. And they happen to be looking across the street. Maybe they're in downtown St. Louis and there's this beautiful water fountain. And they're like, got it. We'll call him Fountain. Right? It's like the old joke about Native Americans. Like when the baby was being born, they would look out and they would see something. They'd be like, that's what their child's name would be. So there's like 2 deer running, 2 eagles flying, and then one is like, oh, 2 dogs humping, and they're like, what? And they're like, that's the first thing we saw when the kid was born. I don't know. It's where my brain goes, people. Please don't judge me. I was scrolling through the names. I'm like, I hope that's Fontaine and not Fountain. If I go to the Capitol next session, I'm going to have to ask. I'd like to know who this Ian Mackey is. He scored 31.84%. Again, don't know, right? Don't have any idea. Is this dude like, oh my God. Is he, how is he basing his votes? I don't know, but it would be, where is he out of? He is out of Brentwood, Clayton, Ladue, Richmond Heights, and University City. Ian Mackey, Democrat. But
so a couple things I want to jump in with to what Tom
go
just
ahead.
said, because I don't disagree with what he was saying hardly at all. The couple key points though is that I'm gonna take a guess and say that almost every single person that he listed, who he said, voiced that their objection to a certain bill was its unconstitutionality on the House floor. Guessing most of those people were Republicans. And and I'm not trying to say Republicans are good on things. I just think that when the Democrats vote constitutionally, it's way more on accident. It's not because they were standing on some constitutional principle. But like you were saying, Tom, the Republicans don't vote constitutionally most of the time. So it's not that I think they're better or anything of that kind of that sort of nature. The feeling that I see when there are Democrats ahead of Republicans on that list, it doesn't make me think that, oh, those Republicans are more constitutional. Just they happen to have voted that way. And especially because the margin of you've got the higher end after our top tier guys, the higher end is like high 20% and the low end is like middle teens. And so because there's not that much of a difference, I just don't see that being like Democrats being like their no votes and ranking up this list is not because of their constitutionality. And again, like you said, most of the time they both vote unconstitutional anyway. So
there is a gentleman, and I know he's a Democrat, although I do not know his name. because when they call on them from the floor, they don't call them by their name. They'll basically make it, will the gentleman from Stratford, or the gentleman from Greene County, or the lady from Cedar County. So you can never realistically figure out who these are. But there was in 2025 session, there was a black gentleman, and I don't know whether he's from St. Louis, Kansas City, what part of the state he's from, but I have actually witnessed him stand up. And don't forget, just because you stand up doesn't mean that you're going to be called on. That's a floor speaker prerogative. But on the times that I've actually seen this gentleman speak, he speaks with great eloquence, and he also will point out when he believes a piece of legislation has violated a section of the Constitution. And the first time I saw it, I just about fell off the floor. It just was like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's see, I don't think there's any black Republicans in the House of Representatives. So that's got to be a Democrat. And here he is. And yeah, I went and looked at the bill, and I looked at the section of the Constitution. I went, ooh, this dude's right on the money. Why don't the other Democrats follow him? They don't. He was like, well, between Wolfen, Christensen, Whaley, Titus, Chappell, and the reason I know them is because they're the Republican names that get thrown out all the time. But this gentleman, on many occasions, has been in that trend of the people who say no. And I know darn well he's not a Republican. And I'd have to go look at our hidden spreadsheet, because you got the totals. But on our actual website, we have them by name, and I can go down and look at their totals to see when it is that they voted like the Bryant Wolfens, like the Mazzy Christensens, like the Brent Whaleys, like those people. And that individual is a Democrat. So that tells me that there are some Democrats who, when push comes to shove, that, yeah, they'll vote constitutionally. It's just not something that they do a preponderance of the time. At some point, I guarantee you, we are going to award a plaque to a Democrat. And I know right then and there that the Locke and Smith Foundation, that will be the end of it, because we will be obliterated by every single elected official.
Now, I do know there is one black Republican. He is out of
there's Shamad Dogan, I think his name is.
There's another one though. There was a couple years ago. There is a famous. This actually appeared on one of the dumb bleeps of the week from Good Morning Liberty, because this Democrat was asking him how he identified. And he goes, I identify as an American. And like, there's a bunch of people in the house that started clapping. But she was like, because he was black and he was a Republican, she was like calling him out on the House floor. And he's like, I identify as a or an American. And it just kind of threw her for a loop. Now, maybe he didn't run again. I could have swore I cannot remember his name to save my life. But yes, he was out of St. Louis County. The reason I remember him so well is that Plocker had a bill. It was an awful bill. I think it was something on like, he tried to get him to amend, which he did, put an amendment on the first gold and silver bill that the Missouri Freedom Initiative was pushing. And I don't know if he just thought, well, if the Speaker of the House is asking me to do this, I'll do it. He got absolutely lit up all over social media. Like, what is this guy's problem? What is his deal? Like, dang it, if I can remember his name. Yeah, it was so funny to hear that guy like, how do you How do you identify? He's like, identify as American, you moron. I mean, he didn't say you moron, but it was pretty entertaining. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's funny how listening to Tom describe seeing a Democrat fight for the Constitution on the House floor was like he'd seen a leprechaun. He was like, "Oh, well, I knew there couldn't be there wasn't any black Republicans in the House, so it had to be a Democrat." So I double checked him, and by golly, he was right.
Well, I think Shema. I think his name was Shema Dogan.
He
I
is
think
one.
he was a Republican,
Okay.
and I'm not aware of any other duly elected officials on the House or Senate floor who are black that are within the Republican Party.
Well,
Now, I know there's that guy in St. Louis who runs for everything, and I jokingly tell him, you'd run for everything, you get elected to nothing. But, oh God, what is his name? He's going to kill me. John, I know you know who I'm talking about.
Is he from St. Louis or outside of St. Louis?
He's from that area. He ran against Sam Page at one point.
I can't.
And he runs in the Republican. He runs in the Republican primaries, and rarely ever does he survive the Republican primary. It's almost like the Republicans are saying, "No, boy, you wait your turn."
Damn, yeah,
I can't think of his name to save my life.
Dang, I wish I could find this guy's name. We're all just looking for names here. We're all just seemingly.
But he used to be a habitual poster on Facebook, but I don't pay that much attention to Facebook anymore because I've been throttled for years. So
yeah, I know. I think we're getting throttled on Twitter, or at least I am. I think I'm getting throttled on Twitter like big time. I must have.
Well, I think Elon's playing games with me because everything I see on Twitter is people that I don't agree with. I mean, I realistically, I have to go hunt down the stuff from Dave Smith. I have to hunt down the stuff from what I would deem my political ideology thinking. Other than that, everything is just, I've got stuff from Mark Levin. I got stuff from Officer Tatum. I've got stuff from Ben Shapiro. And maybe it's because I make the point that, you know, there's MAGA, which to me means America second and Israel first. And then there's actually the American first people. So maybe they're trying to squelch me by putting all these MAGA types up in my feed first. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
Okay, Justin Hicks was his name.
Oh, was the black Republican?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I remember him too.
Yes.
Although I didn't know he was black.
Yeah, he is black. And so the bill was he was fighting. So this is from an article from 2023. A black Missouri Republican received applause on the state house floor during a heated debate on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives when he said he identifies as an American after being questioned by a black Democrat on his ethnicity. Missouri State Rep Justin Hicks to discuss the exchange over a bill opposing funding for DEI initiatives in the state government. This is actually ridiculous that I'm being questioned on issues of race, Hicks said Monday. I think the left is kind of lost face of reality on what's going on. We've moved beyond the issues of race here in America. This is not an issue of race anymore. And I think they look for words to divide us instead of unite us. Hicks was bombarded with questions last week by State Rep Marlene Terry over House Bill 6, which opposes state funds for DEI initiatives for Missouri's Departments of Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Conservation. And can I ask you what you identify as? Terry asked Hicks. Ethnicity. And he said, I identify as an American, which prompted the applause. So that Yeah, just because it is funny because he opposed DEI, the DEI funding, and she's like, "Well, how do you identify?" And he's like, "As an American, you twit." But yeah, he apparently Plocker approached him to add an amendment to the first gold and silver bill, and he did, and it had something to do with crypto or something. I don't remember because that bill in its origin, I believe we deemed that, or you guys deemed that constitutional because all it had to do with was gold and silver. That was it. There was no financial institutions. The only thing is it mentioned that the state would have to accept gold and silver as payment for taxes. The state would have a repository of so much of, percentage of whatever. And then they added that in, and then he got absolutely lit up for a little while. Like, why the heck did you do that? But again, I don't think he even understood, which is on him, why he decided, yeah, I'll just go ahead and throw that amendment on because the Speaker of the House asked me to, and he didn't really look at it before he either that or he doesn't understand the Constitution. I don't freaking know. It's all a guess. That was 2 years ago, and I can't hardly remember what I had for supper the other night. So I'm not. I just remember all the hatred and the vitriol afterwards.
So I want to acknowledge that Gary says Paul Berry is who ran against Page. For
That's
the
it.
county.
Okay, Paul
Okay.
Berry the third. Thank you,
Paul
Gary.
Berry.
I haven't been paying much attention to live chat. Shame on me.
So I read a
Yeah,
thing on.
I jokingly told him one day that he runs for everything, gets elected to nothing, and he said it's the Brotherhood of the Republicans holding me down.
I've never talked to this guy. Is he pretty interesting character? I'm guessing.
Oh, he's a hoot. You gotta, but you gotta get him on. You gotta get him when he's in tune with himself. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Sometimes he'll go off on these. He'll go off on these little tangents that you started in one direction, and all of a sudden you've whipped the 180 and you're going back the other direction, and you don't know how you got there. Kind of like when you were talking to Vincent Cooper on. He's another individual who sometimes you're having a conversation with him, and you're both going the same direction. And then the next thing you know, he's flipped to you and he's gone back and he's like 17 miles behind you. And you're going, wait a minute, what, how did we get over here? Type deal.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Gary. I didn't see your comments. I'm looking at another screen over here and I didn't see that. So I apologize. You put it up there and I just glossed right over it. So I apologize. I feel that way too. Sometimes I get in a conversation and it goes way off road and I go, why did I steer this conversation in that direction? Because I'm so dang scatterbrained at times that it's that my dark humor gets the best of me sometimes. And I say something and then everything turns, speaking of that, just as a quick aside, here I go. Already I'm diverting us off road, right? I hate it when I have a good dad joke and people don't want to admit that it was a great dad joke. So we have a process engineer who's from South America somewhere, I believe. His first name is Jose, right? And they mentioned his name in our tier meeting this morning, and we got all done, and I was chuckling. And somebody's like, "What's so funny, John?" And I said, "Do you think his parents named him after the American national anthem?" And one of the gals just kind of looked at me. I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "Jose, can you see?" And she just turns around and walks out of the room. And I was like, "That was a good dad joke, and you ruined it by not admitting that was a good joke." Vincent said, "Thanks, brother. I catch up." That's his comment to Tom. He does get 17 miles behind you, but he catches up. So yeah. Since we're talking about this whole thing, and you brought up a guest from 2 weeks ago, Tom, I want to hear a little bit of your input on the thing that Vincent's going through, and also the guest we had last week, Chris Bank, on the whole sunflower debacle. Give us your input on these two topics. I'd like to hear your input on these things.
Well, I really absolutely do wish that Chris would reach out to me, because I think that we could absolutely 100% formulate a constitutional argument, not at the city level, because that judge has showed that he's an ignoramus and probably shouldn't be wearing a black robe.
True that.
But at the next level up, we absolutely could implement a constitutional argument, and if he's stuck with the parameters of what the Constitution says, first, how it is that the city of St. Robert is functioning, or whatever the city that he lives in. No, it's not St. Charles, St. whatever, but it is not a charter city.
Right.
And at the beginning, all government was local. And realistically, that's what it meant. All government was local. Then in the kind of stemming towards the 1840s, 1850s, there was this thought process that said all political subdivisions of the state are creations of the state. Therefore, they become second tier to whatever it is that the state wants. Well, the people bought into that argument so much that they literally put that in our state constitution. Because when it specifically says that the legislative power of the state shall be vested in the House and the Senate, which shall be known as the General Assembly, it literally gives all legislative authority to the state. Now, the U.S. Constitution says the same thing. It says all legislative authority is vested in the Congress. Now, we have Article 6 in the state constitution, which is the mechanism by which cities and counties can charter themselves, which means they're home rule, which also still means that the people control those governments. But St. Robert isn't a charter city. Their ordinances they're not laws. It's not like that they need to be adhered to by the letter of the rule. And as that gentleman proved, he literally was not in violation of it, and they didn't want to hear it. So I think that he should take this case to where, as far as he can take it, and make it so that somebody is paying him reparations because he's having to do this. If they would just absolutely drop this case and go, you're right, we were wrong. The sunflower to turf ratio is absolutely stupid. And we see that you're in compliance. We're not going to go through anything else, and we're not going to pass any new laws. As for what Vincent's going through, it's absolutely abominable that you've got government employees, both at the school board level, the school superintendent level, the sheriff's level, the sheriff's deputy, who have decided to be judge, jury, and executioner, and that includes the journalist and whoever else is involved in this whole escapade, to destroy a man's life. And the fact that when this whole court case gets done, let's say that Vincent is awarded $5 million. And let's say that the county and all the different political entities pay him that $5 million. You know who's still going to be a school board member? Who's still going to be a school superintendent, although he already resigned? Who's still going to be a sheriff? Who's still going to be a sheriff's deputy? Who's still going to be the journalist? Not a darn thing is going to happen to those people, even though they willfully neglected to abide by Vincent's rights, and they attempted to destroy that man. And every single one of them will have not a cent coming out of their own pocket to have to pay him for what he has gone through. And that system is absolutely bullcrap. If you, as a sheriff's deputy, especially the one that, based on what I know about the one that he's talking about, you create the charge on your own willingness to do so, and then you present that to the prosecutor, and then the prosecutor then goes through with the charge. Neither one of those two should be employed anywhere. Matter of fact, neither one of those two should be allowed to be employed by any governmental entity anywhere. But that system has got to get blown up and reworked to the point where when somebody within a governmental entity violates your rights, they are required to compensate you, no matter how long it takes, for whatever amount of money that it is that you're awarded. And then they themselves are not allowed to be in any governmental capacity for the rest of their lives.
I could not agree more. And it would be great to see a piece of legislation that says if you violate someone's natural rights, as they've done with Vincent or they've done with Chris Bank, then, and if this individual sues for damages, that you can't hide behind, you can't have the insurance company that covers, everything for that city or town or village or whatever. You can't hide behind them. You can't have a money shield. The insurance company did not write these ordinances. The insurance company is not enforcing these ordinances. They're not taking people to court over the dumbest things or trying to just literally wreck their lives by, I don't know, posting all their sensitive information on the internet so you can have your account hit 5 times. No, that was you. So, again, sometimes I get a little fired up and I call these people spineless cowards because that's the way they act. They want to hide behind the law. They want to hide behind their little seat of power. They want to enforce this stupidity and drag you through court to get you to comply. What's another cowardly thing you could do? Oh, if you're proven wrong, then you get to hide like a coward and hide behind the insurance company, and they take the financial hit because who cares? It's not their money. It's taxpayer money pays that, those insurance deductibles and payments and everything. So who gives a rip? And and those people are allowed to keep their jobs generally. Sometimes they're ousted, depending on, how much damage control needs to be done. But generally they just get to keep their cushy little government jobs. And it's like, you need to go bye-bye. You need to go take a flying leap through a rolling donut, a long jump off a short pier, however you want to word it, however you want to phrase that. But you should your wallet should be getting raped, to put it bluntly, and not the taxpayers. It just
if you've taken an action that for a positive fact is not part of your governmental job, you lose this crap of immunity. This made up crap that simply because you're in government that you can hide behind the shield of the government. Well, it's the people who control government, and the fact that the people who are in government created this shield for themselves is absolute bunk, and that needs to be eliminated.
Yeah. Just go ahead, Brandon. What I know I'll let you cut in here. Going on.
A lot of people, when they think about politics, they focus on like the federal and the state level. And I feel like at the federal level, it's easier to screw all of us. And at the state level, they screw everyone in the state. But at the local level, that's where you find like the targeted, like singling out, ruining of someone's life like this. And, as you guys were just saying, it's despicable behavior. And hopefully we can find some solutions for Chris and Vincent and everybody, and hopefully we get some wins. these corrupt local governments.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'm still kind of curious what happened to the police officer dude who had the RVs on his property when his house burned down.
Yeah, I've heard nothing on that anymore. You know, I don't want to speak ill of the guy. I don't, want to wish any harm on him or whatever, but I really hope that stays with him, right? And that when he goes to do his job, that he remembers that and says, okay, this has taught me a lesson on the rights of people, and I need to be more, careful on how I go about my job. And do I understand the Constitution? And do I understand natural rights? So on and so forth. I hope that whole thing sticks with him. I really do. Because, again, what he had to endure is complete and utter crap. But I hope that, I hope that lesson sticks with him. And he remembers that when he goes out and does his job as a law enforcement officer. Like I said, I haven't heard anything more on it, but yeah, it's I don't know, pretty freaking frightening. And to Brandon's point, it's something we've discussed many times here about how people just kind of forget, or how people get tired. And again, it's not hard because that's your headlines, right? The national news, state news, that kind of, especially at the federal level right now with the government shutdown. People, I want to talk about this a little bit with you too, Tom, because there's nothing I enjoy more than seeing my some relatives of my wife talking about how it's the Democrats' fault that the government won't reopen. And I always put, I hope it doesn't reopen. And then there's no response. I that just cracks me up every time. I told my wife, I was like, your aunt or your uncles or whoever is probably getting really fed up with me saying, I hope it never reopens or I hope it stays shut down. It's just funny. These people who proclaim, we talk about this all the time, proclaim to be so limited government or conservative that at a time like this, it goes right back to the duopoly, the infighting, the finger pointing, the name calling, whatever. They can't come to the realization that, like, hey, maybe we don't need this big bloated entity invading every aspect of our life. Maybe we can do better than this. Maybe we don't need this. We're over a month through this thing and the whole system hasn't collapsed yet. So I don't know. Maybe we don't need it. Nope. Let's go right back to fighting amongst ourselves so we don't pay attention to how badly we're getting screwed by Uncle Sam or whatever. Right? It cracks me up. Right? It just cracks me up that it's like you guys still haven't figured this out yet, huh? Cool. All right, cool. Still haven't figured out you're being held down at the ankles and wrists and just being continually assaulted by your government. I won't get explicit on how I describe this too explicit, but I think it's hilarious what we got here.
Some live election updates. Looks like Democrats are taking a clean sweep of governor race for New Jersey and Virginia, and then Mandami looking like he's going to win. I mean, 10% seems like a pretty high margin to come back from. I'm not sure the breakdown on which counties have voted, but the Democratic Socialists in heavy first.
Yeah, I like how I didn't know Cuomo was running as an independent. I guess he had to because there'd be a primary, so I guess he had to run as an independent. But I never heard that. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I don't know how I got on this list to get text messages every stinking day from this Winsome Sears in Virginia. Like, lady, I don't even live in your state. Why are you texting me? Begging, telling me about how bad things are. Like, we get it. We know you got idiots in Virginia but that's, I can't help you. I'm not sending you any money. But yeah, I would delete the text and hit delete and report junk. I kept doing that over and over and over and over again. And then for some ungodly reason, I saw Don Jr. here. Well, Don Jr., why don't you go screw yourself? Okay. I'm not gonna hit the link that you send me in my text message to try to get me all warm and fuzzy about your dad. Sorry. No, I'm done. Okay. So yeah, I'm still getting bombarded. And it's to the point some days, like depending on the day, it's like, I'm just going to disconnect my line. I'm just going to just go away from cell phone service altogether. Just go pee up a rope. I'm done. And it's not the other crap that I get. It's those stupid text messages. Hey, it's Don Jr. here. Or Donald Trump says it, blah, 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 blah. Or it's Winsome Sears or some other schmuck. And I'm like, I don't care. How did I get on this list? How did you get my number?
Can't you text stop to?
I don't know. Sometimes I guess I could. I guess I don't look at it close enough. I just get irritated and just block the number. I guess I'm not smart enough to go, I should probably just hit stop. But yeah, I get these all the time. They're all gone now. I keep deleting them so I don't have to look at them anymore and want to hurt myself in some way. But yeah, crap is infuriating. Apparently you've never listened to the show ever to know that how much we trash Republicans on the show all the time. So you're not paying attention very well.
So I guess I do want to bring up the talk of the town, which is that SNAP benefits are being shut off and it is causing pandemonium. And so I heard some things. I heard the Missouri or the Good Morning Liberty guys talking about it a little bit. Just didn't know if you had an opinion on it or if you'd heard anything noteworthy on it.
So Chris Ann Hall, let me find the post. One of my wife's uncles posted something, and I had a really good response to it, like I always do. And I just said, "Yep, that's Republicans and Democrats lying to you." I got to find his post. Chris Ann Hall says, "How many know that food stamps and Medicaid are mandatory spending and not even a part of the annual budget? They both are authorized by permanent law, not the annual appropriations omnibus bills. Congress does not need to vote each year to fund them unless they want to change eligibility, benefit levels, or formulas. The funding automatically adjusts based on how many people qualify and what benefits they're entitled to under existing law. So all the rhetoric is fear-mongering, and since they are established by permanent law and not by annual appropriations, they are not included in the spending numbers. So they are in addition to the spending numbers you see or don't see. And at the very bottom in all caps, she put facts matter. So I was like, oh, I for one, because I am not that educated, did not know that. So that's my input. It's good to know this. And I'm happy that she posted that, so I am more educated. But again, as I was just saying, this is a way of getting people to fight, the cult members and the left and the right, to fight each other over this shutdown. And all the while, these members of Congress, the president, vice president, everybody else, this is almost, to me, and Tom, I'll let you talk here in a second. Sorry. But this is almost like to me like a litmus test or an experiment to see how many people think that government should still be operating in the capacity that it has been for several years now, and how many people are like, we don't need them. Like that's a low number. People are like, we don't need these fruit bats, and we don't need all these programs. We should just totally cut the spending. Like a giant chunk of it should just go. But the majority of the people out there are fighting to get the government back open. And it's like it's like once I don't know if it's like feeds their ego, like I really need to see how many people still love me and love what I do. I know, let's shut the government down, and then we'll put the snap thing out there and we'll get them fighting on who wants the government to open up first and the most, and that'll gauge my popularity or something. I don't know. It just seems so counterproductive and so unintelligent, and it's just frustrating. Tom, go ahead. What are your thoughts, brother?
Well, you know how frustrated I get when people say, but my First Amendment rights, my Second Amendment rights, my Fourth Amendment rights, or Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, even though it was a Supreme Court opinion, which they'll promote as being a Supreme Court decision. What the hell is permanent law? Now, Chrisanne Hall is absolutely 100% correct, except for when she makes the case that this is permanent law. There is no such thing as permanent law. You can realistically change a law session after session after session after session. There is no such thing as a permanent law. The only reason that such a thing could even be thought of is because nobody has the backbone to go in and say, we've been doing this now for 60 freaking years, and we just keep getting worse at it. So we're going to abolish this whole thing and start fresh with a new system that perhaps is more beneficial or is more productive or it's better financed or it's something. But when you make the case that it's permanent law, it just freaking infuriates me. And coming from Chrisanne, it actually does, it even more infuriates me that she used that language.
Interesting.
Nothing is ever permanent.
I mean, that is true. You are right. Can we talk about one other thing here? Because I did not know this. I did not know that. Now, it doesn't surprise me, right? Doesn't surprise me at all. I did not know that who's the fast-talking Jewish dude? Ben Shapiro. I never knew that Ben Shapiro wrote, let's see. Let me just put it up here. What he put, oh my God.
Okay, quick quiz. What branch of the military did Mark Levin and or Ben Shapiro serve in that would lead them to believe that they're an expert on what the military can do, should do, and that they've done it themselves?
Oh, if I had to guess, I'd say they were both somewhere in the IDF, but I'm not sure if that constitutes as a branch of the United States military at this point, or if the military is a branch of the IDF. Who knows, really? But my guess is none or the IDF.
You are correct. Neither one of those two buffoons have any active or even penned a piece of paper that said they might go into the United States military. But I always love how it is that those two buffoons will absolutely promote the fact that we need to go to war here, we need to go to war there, we need to do this here, and our boys can handle it. I love how they always make it so that they're volunteering other people's children to go die somewhere, therefore that they can promote how wonderful they are for veterans and disabled veterans and those veterans that never returned. Those two just absolutely infuriate me, especially now, because those two were adamant never Trumpers.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden they kiss that behind of Donald Trump so good that you would swear that they are the whole reason that Donald Trump sits in the Oval Office now.
Yeah, so this post, this got brought up on another show that I was listening to, but this comes from Ben Shapiro in 2011. It says Gingrich almost drops his pen. Ron Paul grabs it and wrings it like the neck of a Jew, but he spelled it J-O-O. Now, there's a pretty good response down here. Dr. Ron Paul, we shouldn't be racking up an insurmountable debt and laying it on our children. Ben Shapiro, Ron Paul wants to strangle my people. I mean, somebody else puts delusional, warmonger at it again, evil cuck. And then somebody wrote below it, I'm Dan Crenshaw. That one cracks me up. Let's see. Old habits die hard for the kvetching foreign agents. Ron Paul is anti-war. Yeah, no kidding. How on earth did this bozo become a prominent figure in right-wing politics? He's a buffoon. That's because a lot of right-wingers are pro-war and they're pro U.S. intervention into.
Ben Shapiro he's the perfect example of a dumb person's idea of a smart guy.
But he can talk fast.
Right.
Yeah, I seems like he missed out on a golden career opportunity. You know, you'll hear a commercial on the radio and then like the little the small print. I know that they record it in like normal time, but then they speed it up for the end of the commercial. He wouldn't have to do that. He could read the fine print at the end of the ad, but it would be his normal pace. So why pay a guy to just read it? You could just have Ben Shapiro do it. He lost out on a great career. All those commercials, all those ads on radio and television at the end, he could just do that. And he wouldn't have to take the time to speed it up. Be like, Jesus Christ, this guy's really good. We don't even have to pay the audio editor to speed up the stuff at 4 times speed. So he can rattle off this blither at the end about how we're not responsible for if our product makes your kidneys fall out of your butthole. So I don't know. It just seems like Ben Shapiro missed out on a golden career opportunity. Someone needs to talk to him.
I'm going to step out on this limb very gingerly. But if you look at the way Turning Point USA, Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, and a lot of these other people got their start from nothing, and I'm including J.D. Vance as well, there were huge dollars that came in to prop them up, to get them going, and then those huge dollars were then filtered by more huge dollars. Eventually, you become a slave to those huge dollars. And if those huge dollars all happen to have one or a couple things in common, then you become a huge slave to whatever it is that huge money has in common. And if you look at Levin, I'm beginning to believe, and I know I'm in the wrong place to say this, but as I look back on the 80s, I'm beginning to believe that Rush Limbaugh was a government psyop to the greatest extent. Because in my opinion, he would be considered the godfather of the conservative movement. Now, there was a gentleman in New York City, and I forget his name, who was actually he would be more of the conservative godfather than Rush would. But think about how the media, rarely ever did you hear anybody who had the ideology of a Rush. Then Rush gets on air, he just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you look at the people and the money that were behind how his growth got to the point where it got to, and then you become a slave to that. And then eventually either people are going to see through it or they're just going to ignore it as if it doesn't occur.
Yeah, I want to play this audio from Levin at the Republican Jewish Coalition, because someone needs him to cut out the amount of turtle wax he's using on his head, because the glare coming off of it is astounding. But let's just hear. I want to play this because he outright admits about the people they've canceled who speak out against the Israeli government. Now, I love how these people, they don't mention Israel, the government. They always tie Israel to the people, and that if you speak out against what Netanyahu and some of these people do, you're automatically talking about all Israeli people and you're automatically anti-Jewish, right? But let's just hear what Schmucky Schmuckerson here has to say. Oh, come on. Hold on. Because I'm dumb and I know I'm going to make the same mistake I did last night. Let me also share the audio so we don't just look at Mark Levin just moving his lips and no one hearing it, even though that would be much better for society. Let me play this here. Hopefully it's not astoundingly loud.
Or whether it's Nick Fuentes, and I've been looking over my shoulder looking for help. And you know what I found? Nothing. Nothing. We're here today to do something about this. What do you mean we don't cancel people? We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a...
I want to pause it there. What he just says right there, I'm not gonna play this whole thing because we don't have much time left. But what he says right there, we're gonna use the market system. They don't use the market system. People that have been canceled, like Pat Buchanan, Nick Fuentes, some of these other people, agree with them or not, they're not being canceled by the market system. They're being canceled by a bunch of slimy socialists who want to control speech and language in this country. But I'll play a little bit more from Bald Bill, the butthurt.
He forgot
bastard.
to mention the 9/11 truthers.
Yeah,
He canceled those too.
Absolutely. Let me play just a little bit more here.
bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact. You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi, Klan, jihadist bullshit around American patriotism. You don't get to claim you're MAGA and America first when you're lining up with the Marxists and the Islamists and Hamas and the terrorists.
Yeah, that's enough of that.
Get off my phone, you dope.
What I think is funny about that clip, just in the very beginning of what you showed, he's like, I've been fighting these guys, and you know how much help I'm getting? No help. So what are we going to do? We're going to cancel them. Me and all my supporters that I'm just complaining about that aren't there. And the funniest part to me is, I've never really cared for Nick Fuentes. I've never really searched out his stuff. I saw him on Dave Smith and Tucker, and he had some interesting points made me think about some things I'd never really thought of in a way before. But the craziest part to me is you're acting like you're about to cancel Nick Fuentes when he was off of all platforms and social medias at a time when that was like the way to make, like that was when it was first taking off, podcasting and everything, and how you made your money was like on YouTube. Like if you weren't in YouTube system, you didn't have a way to make money. So what did he do? Created his own network, like Cozy TV. I had to look into this whenever I saw how hard he got deplatformed. He had to build his own network where people had to sign up and watch him. And like, I'll see his clips every now and then now since the Dave Smith interview, like his clips come across my feed and people just on his show are giving him $75, $100 for like super chats. So he is the most uncancelable person. Whether you agree or disagree with his politics, the canceling Nick Fuentes, it cannot be done. Like they've done everything they possibly could for him. I like Dave Smith, whenever he had his conversation, mentioned that like 5 or 6 years ago, they did a show together. But like, I've never seen anyone even close to mainstream prominence ever sit down with Nick Fuentes. And so like the idea that Mark Levin's going to rally the troops to go cancel this guy now to 8 years after he was canceled the first time, it's just not going to happen.
No, Tom, we got just under 5 minutes. I'll let you close out the show this evening. So give us your thoughts.
I had no clue who Nick Fuentes is. I heard his name mentioned on occasion, but because he was not in my media sphere, I had no clue who he was until I started to research some of the things, and I found some of the clips where he was discussing about, he's a Christian nationalist. He believes that white women should marry white men, that black women should marry black men, that, and he was going off on this. Okay, that's something that in reality, that's his opinion. That's an opinion he's allowed to have. He has a right to have. But when people attempt to make the case that he's a lover of Hitler without actually going back and reviewing how Hitler came to power, what caused Hitler to come to power, what ended up being orchestrated, and how it is that we ended up with the Holocaust, you're either denying a huge part of history or you're just choosing to overlook it in hopes that no one else will look at it. I mean, I had to do a serious deep dive to get into the thinking process of Nick Fuentes. I learned crap about the World War II and before World War II, between 1 and 2, that I never knew until I started deep diving on Nick Fuentes. And, I don't find him as a bad individual. Does he say some things that I disagree with? Absolutely. But I even say things I disagree with. Because when I go back and listen to him, I'll go, you dummy, why did you say that? But it's the fact that he is the most, between him and Tucker, are now considered the most vile, hated Americans in the United States of America, just absolutely blows me away. I just wish that I could achieve that status.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this week's and this month's Martzist edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Tom, as always, great to have you on the show. So next week, don't really have any guest planned, but I guarantee you, after this whole moron Momdomny thing and everything else, I think it's going to be a very interesting show next week. I'm sure we're going to have all kinds of stuff to talk about and review on this all these elections and everything else. The state of Missouri has given us plenty of headlines lately on all the stupidity as well. So we're going to have all kinds of great material to cover. But anyway, so please make sure you're back here right back here next week, Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Central to join Brandon and I for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Also, don't forget, if you find this on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook, give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, leave a review. If you see us on, you hear this on a podcasting app, make sure you give it a like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a review. That helps more people find the show. And as always, just everybody have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I have a 4-day weekend coming up. And let me tell you, I can't freaking wait for it to get here. I'm going to take a 3-hour drive north with my big old telephoto lens and hope to see a bunch of waterfowl at a refuge lake. I don't know, an hour and a half north of Columbia. That's my plans for Sunday, I believe. And I got a wedding shoot on Saturday. But anyway, I got a weekend full of crap to do. I hope you guys all have something enjoyable that you get to do. And we'll see you right here next week, Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. See y'all then. Have a great evening.